Good day and welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk about how the Dutch government has taken over a Chinese chip plant in the Netherlands. And this led to a major shortage in Europe. So Volkswagen now has a chip shortage, so maybe it needs to take some from all the washing machines and fridges. Now let's remember back in 2022, the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen's State of the Union address, when she bragged about the toughest sanctions the world's ever seen against Russia. And she claimed at the time that Russia's financial sector was on life support. She said, "We've cut off 3/4 of Russia's banking sector from international markets, and the Russian military is taking chips from dishwashers and refrigerators to fix their military hardware because they've run out of chips and semiconductors. The Russian industry is in tatters I tell you." Well, now the situation has changed. Von der Leyen may have spoken a little too soon, as it's not Russia that's currently in trouble, but Germany's Volkswagen. Now, in a report by the German tabloid newspaper Bild, Volkswagen is preparing to suspend the production of one of its most popular model, the Golf, at its Wolfsburg factory today. The Tiguan and other models will surely follow this, as the worsening semiconductor shortage begins to send shockwaves across the whole European automobile sector. As reported by the German media outlet, the missing Chinese chips are due to the supply shortage on stoppage of Nexperia chips. Now, the reason behind the production suspension is that the Nijmegen-based semiconductor manufacturer is at the centre of a dispute between China, the Dutch and the United States. Now, in response to instructions from the US government, the Dutch government took control of Nexperia. In turn, Beijing then banned the export of Nexperia chips from China. Now, before I continue, many of you watching this video are not subscribers to my channel. So if you enjoy this video, then please hit the subscribe button. Also click on the alert bell so you get notified when I post a new video. Plus, if you want to support me, you can make a donation by clicking on the thanks button at the bottom right hand side of the screen, or by clicking on the Buy Me a Coffee link below in the credits. Now, on Sunday the 26th of October, I'm going to be doing a live stream. It'll be at 6 p.m. London time, 1 p.m. New York time, and 7 p.m. Central European time. So do join me, ask questions, and participate in this. Now, we're a world where we've become used to the rule of law, particularly in international business. So it's unusual for outright theft to happen when one country steals another country's property and company. But that just happened in the Netherlands. A Chinese company, which just happens to be one of the world's largest microelectronics manufacturers, has been taken over. And not as a result of a fair deal, a merger, or even a buyout, but theft, simply because it's there. On Tuesday, Politico reported that the Dutch authorities had taken control of the Chinese-owned chip maker Nexperia. Now, this information was based on the newly released court documents. It came after significant pressure from Washington. Now, the Netherlands-based company was seized earlier this month. This news follows a period of intensifying trade tensions between the US and China, with disputes over tariffs, export controls, and technology transfers. Now, the production of semiconductors remains a particularly sensitive area due to its critical role in global technology and security, as they have both civilian and military uses. Now, in June, representatives from the Dutch Foreign Ministry and the US agencies responsible for protecting critical technology met to discuss the Dutch-based chip maker, which is owned by the Chinese group Wingtech. Now, the Netherlands has effectively expropriated Nexperia from its Chinese owners. Now, I don't actually see any formal grounds for this decision. And what are its potential implications for the global economy? I think they're serious. After all, this is a bit more serious than stealing Gazprom's assets in Germany and in the UK, or Lukoil's in the UK. The Dutch government has taken control of Nexperia, and that's a Chinese-owned company. Now, the Dutch Ministry of Economic Affairs has stated that it's taken this highly exceptional decision in order to prevent a threat to the continuity and preservation of essential technological knowledge and the capabilities in the Netherlands and Europe. He's quoting the Accessibility of Goods Act, which led to the removal of Nexperia's Chinese management, and that was initially passed to allow the Hague Tribunal to intervene in companies' activities to prevent threats to the country's economic security and ensure the supply of critical goods. Now, in the Netherlands, Nexperia's representative statement said that the company currently complies with all existing laws, regulations, export controls, and sanction regime, and it was not given the attention its statement deserved. Now, the history of Nexperia is the Dutch company was established in the 1920s when Philips took control of the British and German vacuum tube manufacturers, and it's an interesting background story. Now, in 2006, Philips Semiconductor division was spun off into NXP Semiconductors, and Nexperia was subsequently established as a separate company. Then in 2017, Nexperia was acquired by Chinese investment funds Jack Capital and Wise Road Capital for $2.75 billion. At the end of 2019, a controlling stake in Nexperia was acquired by the Chinese company Wingtech Technology. Now, the company still retained its status as a Dutch legal entity and operational independence. Nexperia's Hamburg facility currently produces over 1 million silicone wafers a year. In Stockport, which is a district, or used to be a town, but it's actually now a suburb of Manchester, they manufacture power microchips for automotive electronics, industrial applications, telecommunications equipment, and high-performance charging systems. They actually produce over 20 billion end devices or components for them. Nexperia produces over 100 billion parts, which is approximately a quarter of the world's global output. Now, silicone wafer production is concentrated primarily in Europe, while the final product manufacturing and testing is primarily located in Asia. That's China, Malaysia, and the Philippines. Now, in Europe, wafers are grown, polished, and thin films are deposited. Circuits are printed using photolithography, dopants, and ion planting. Etching is performed, transistors and diodes are formed, and finally the wafer is cut and shipped intact. Now, the thousands of finished chiplets are ready on the wafer. However, it's worth noting that they do not yet have a package. So some of the products Nexperia sources have silicone wafers from ATX Semiconductors in the Suzhou province of China, GTA Semiconductors in Shanghai. However, it's not feasible to completely replace European supplies. Now, legally, all Nexperia plants are managed from the company's headquarters in Nijmegen in the Netherlands. Now, following the removal of the Chinese management, the administrator appointed by the Dutch government is now in a position to dictate what the company does, particularly the Asian plants, which are suppliers of the finished products, and whether they are or not acceptable. At this time, we'll see what happens. But I think should Washington or Brussels impose further extraterritorial sanctions on Wingtech, the Chinese companies that own it, then it could face some conceivable difficulties. Now, while it's conceivable that Guangdong plant, which is located in China, could be placed under the control of Chinese state agencies, this is not feasible for the plants in Malaysia and the Philippines, as they would have to follow the orders from the management in Nijmegen. Well, we'll see. Now, the decision to place the Chinese company Nexperia under government control is yet another example of the US and the West economic warfare strategy to can secure exclusive control over key industries and companies. And this is not a recent development. The legal basis for dealing with foreign property under the pretext of ensuring national security has existed in a number of countries since before the Cold War. During the period of globalization, these dormant regulations were never utilized. But recently they've been recalled, and where such legal instruments did not exist, efforts have been made to create them. For instance, in 2020, Australia passed a last resort power law empowering the Australian Treasury to compel a foreign investor to sell assets if a national security threat arose. In 24-25, this law was used to seize northern mineral shares from Chinese investment funds. In 2019, the Committee of Foreign Investment in the United States recognized the purchase of 60% of Grindr by the Chinese company Beijing as a risk to US national security. I don't understand why. And it ordered the forced sale of the app. Since 2022, this practice has reached unprecedented proportions. In September 2022, external administration was introduced over Rosneft's Germany assets in the refineries of Schwedt, Mayro and the Bayerl in Germany. In 2022, the gas importer SEFE, formerly Gazprom Germany, was nationalised while pursuing the seizure of Russian assets. The West has also considered the interests of China in the same thing. In November 2022, China included the Investment Act to compel 3 Chinese investors to divest their interest in critical mineral companies. And the US Congress and administration passed legislation to force the spin-off of TikTok, which is part of ByteDance, or ban the app in the US. Now, the negotiations on that sale to American investors are still underway. Now, in May 2024, President Biden signed an order requiring Chinese mining companies to sell a parcel of land they owned in Wyoming due to its proximity to an intercontinental ballistic missile base. Now, this is just one of the examples where national security considerations are not even formally related, but they do force the sale of foreign assets. In September 2024, the US government added WingTech, which owns Nexperia, to the list of designated national security threats. Everything's a national security threat in America. Now, American companies are prohibited from exporting their goods to entities on the list without special permission. Recently, an attempt under the same pretext to sell the Panama Ports Company, which is a subsidiary of Hong Kong-based C.K. Hutchison, which manages the port terminals at the Panamanian cities of Balboa and Cristobal, to the investment company BlackRock, resulted in a preliminary agreement of $22.8 billion. However, Beijing was not happy, so the deal was frozen while negotiations continue with Trump and Xi. But Washington and Panama are committed to minimizing, it means Washington as China's presidents. Now, the Nexperia affair in particular serves to illustrate that globalization is now a thing of the past. It's evident that all the most favored nation investment schemes and investment climate rates have become obsolete. It's now evident to all investors that if their businesses are located in a territory not directly controlled or influenced by their government, they could lose control of it at any time, be forced to sell, or even have it confiscated. So the so-called rule-based international order doesn't provide any protection whatsoever. America and its allies will just bully and steal. Thank you for watching. Have a good day, and I'll see you all again soon.